Okay, so again, this is a summary of the process, but so normally when somebody requests membership, Jason, the founder, gets a notification, and then he looks at that person's answer to certain questions you did not get because I sent you the wrong link.
That's okay.
But then he looks at how they answer the questions, and he looks just to make sure they're not like a troll or a bot or something. And then he accepts their application. And then when he accepts it, they receive a note that suggests the next steps, which is
Oh,
start here, which is what you did. You actually, the start here article says, so where are you from? And blah, blah, blah. And you found that, and I'm interested to know how you found that. But anyway, but he normally pushes that in the welcome message, not pushes it, but makes it visible. Start here, and then encourages people to look at the classroom where the free courses are. And
right.
so we get very little response. So for example, we have 260 members, 260 people who have been accepted as members. And of those 260, 25 have started the courses.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
they're not taking it to the next step. Now there's a possibility that they're starting the course or participating in it, but they're missing a step because you have to manually check when you finish a module. You have to say, oh, I finished this module. It not only lets the user know, it helps them keep track of how far they got, but then I, as the moderator of the community, I can go in and see, that, Steve Taylor is 20% of the way through course 1. But that data is not pushed to me. I have to go and look at each individual member's account.
Oh,
Is
that's
a little bit of a fly in the ointment.
oh
Anyway,
yeah.
but I'm doing it because what I'm doing is getting like familiar with the people's names. If they fill out the introduce yourself like you did, I respond to every single one of those. I get a notification when somebody fills that out. And then I go in and I read their stuff. I usually look at their LinkedIn. I put them into HubSpot. I have like 7 steps of what I do when somebody does the introduce yourself part.
Oh,
So
neat.
that allows me to kind of also acknowledge them, introduce myself, and then I can put in HubSpot my reminders then, then I can schedule, go back and check on Steve Taylor and see how he's doing on course 1, So I'm setting up an automation of how to follow, but if people don't fill out the introduce yourself, I just have to dig around
Right.
because
Yeah.
I don't have them set up with a notification. So that's a bit of a problem. And that is because of the school platform where we have our community, they wall off that data.
Yeah, that's really odd.
Yeah, I can do an export of members, but I get very little information. I don't
Yeah.
get their classroom participation information. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
So I am right now putting together elaborate spreadsheets basically of
Right.
different ways to acknowledge members, acknowledge their participation, encourage their participation, and to really define our vision. Why do they want to come back here anyway?
Yeah.
And it should be around, our audience should only be people who are looking to apply AI methodology to their business operations. Generally, well, marketing is the main focus, but I'm also seeing people sign up who are not in marketing, and they'll say, I'm not a marketer, but I want to know how to use AI. So I'm trying to help use use that as an opportunity for us to also provide them with learning, materials, because my theory or my perspective has always been, this is all great for marketing, but what if you don't run a big enterprise that's doing this huge marketing? What if you just want to learn AI? How can I find a structured program for just learning AI so I can apply it to my life and my own business of, maybe selling handmade soap, and managing the operations. So anyway,
Yeah, that sounds good. So do you have a hypothesis as to why only 25 people have started a course, whereas there's 260 members?
okay, let me just write this down. Hypothesis for why only 25 members have started the courses.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Now, the reason I have to write this down is because I am in course 3, and course 3 talks about strategy, and it talks about creating hypotheses for your for steps in your vision, for steps
Yeah.
that build toward the vision. So hypotheses are very important. I have built out several different uses that I want to use AI for. Most of them are around building this community, but then I have to create a hypothesis, and I don't believe that I have got that down, and I think that that would be an excellent one. But let me see what I wrote down as a hypothesis, or if I even managed that part of it. Hang on one second. AIMF. Oh wait, I've got it under. No, I don't. Yeah, that's what, and the reason that came to your mind, I'm sure, is because you are by nature a strategist. And,
Yeah.
or not, maybe
Plus,
not
I've
by
worked
nature,
with
but
you for a very long time, well, for
yeah.
quite some time. I mean, so I know the questions to
Well,
ask.
what's interesting is that, like, as Jason presents this stuff in the courses, um, it's stuff like we as professionals are aware of, but it's the putting the structure to it that
Right.
helps us to take it from concept to practical application. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing is like, yeah, that's, I definitely want to do, let me just pull this up a second. Hang on a second. There we go. Checklist, quizzes, courses. I'm on course 3. Documented goals and hypotheses. So I'm looking for ways to get people to I've got a few different ones here. And then he's giving us prompts, like sample prompts, to flesh out the hypotheses. So my user
Nice.
story is, we want to understand how members utilize the knowledge they gain through our free courses and apply it to their own learning goals. This will validate the value of the basic courses and identify the members who are qualified and likely to make a financial commitment to continued education in the pro community. Because that's further down the funnel, is to bring them on as a client who is working with Jason and some of our other implementers.
Right.
We're in a coaching situation, So I don't have, all right, so my beginning is identify the members who are actively doing the coursework, and my ending is enroll them in the pro community and give them ways to announce and advocate the benefits of it. So that's how I've sort of framed that. But I think what I'd
Yeah.
like to do now with your suggestion is to create a hypothesis for why only 25 are. Now, in my head, so let me again just verbalize this, and this is coming like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. My hypotheses are, or hypothesis consists of, one, people are, there's just too much stuff coming at them. They think this
Right.
is a great idea. It's been introduced to them. This community has been introduced to them by, some influencer or some trusted, colleague. And they look
Mm-hmm.
at it, they think, oh, this is cool. And then they get the welcome message. So they're aware of it, but they haven't enacted, they haven't followed through, which is basically because the first thing is the getting started, fill out the introduce yourself. And I have, of the 260 or so members, this is the stats I'm keeping in HubSpot. Of the 260 members, I have about 60 who have introduced themselves.
I see. Okay.
And so that's like an interim step or an easy step compared to going to the courses. And it's hard to get people to even do that.
I wonder why.
So I think the idea about focusing on the hypothesis is a good one. Additionally, I believe that the makeup of the people who have become members, first of all, I think Jason made a mistake. He followed what I call spray and pray methodology for
Mm.
getting members, and they aren't necessarily qualified.
Right.
And he just accepted anybody at first just to get the numbers going,
Mm-hmm.
which turned out to be a lot of work for me because I agreed to manage the community and I had to find a way to get to know each of these people, or at least get to know their psychographics. That was
Yeah.
a lot of work. I spent most of the month of July doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I found that a lot of them were really advanced already in AI, which makes sense because that's the environment, where Jason exists. So a lot of the people that he told about the community already have very high, a lot of experience. They write about AI, they teach about AI, they present about AI. So going into course one is quite basic for them. And they're like, I don't really need these. So that's
Right. I
another
see.
part of my hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad we're recording this because I'll listen to that. And then let's see. So I said, just getting them past the start part is hard. I don't know why. Then taking the course has something to do with they're already feeling like they're advanced. They don't need this basic stuff. And actually, it's not basic. It looks basic by the titles. But
Okay.
once you dig into it, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Or that's a good piece of information to keep when I'm teaching others or when I'm applying it myself. Just some like fundamentals that are great for repeating and emphasizing no matter what your level is. But
Yeah.
based on the title of the modules and the courses, I think people get the impression that they already know this, so they're not going to take the time.
I see. Okay.
Okay,
That
then
makes
the
sense.
other thing is, the other one was maybe they're not checking off that they have completed this module. So I'm not aware that these people are doing it because that's a step that's manual and it is self-reported. It's not an automatic thing. So that data might be slightly low.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is that people might go through the entire module and then at the bottom there's a question or an exercise. And if they are a little on the OCD side, as many of these people, I believe, they're like, I'm not going to check it off until I finish it. The exercise or the question requires additional time after they've already reviewed, seen the whole presentation. And they might put that on hold. I'm not going to check this off yet. I need to think about the exercise. I need to think about how I want to respond to the question. And then they either get distracted, which is a distraction is still a huge problem in
Oh, yeah.
getting messaging out. So that is another thing is, people might be getting all the way through the presentation, but then they get hung up at the part where they actually have to do something with it. And frankly,
Right.
the course isn't going to benefit them if they don't do the exercise.
True.
The
Yes.
exercises are hugely valuable. And I know that because I am investing the time and I am investing the effort and I am creating my own vision statement, my own workflows. I'm, working out my workflows and I'm getting AI to help me make my workflows. I'm, I'm using AI along the way, and Jason teaches you how to use AI along the way, but he doesn't start teaching you how to actually use AI to get through the course until you're right near the end of course 2.
Right. Okay.
So you have to go pretty far way into, like each course has maybe 12 modules,
Yeah.
give or take,
Yeah.
depending. And so anyways, the courses are their work. You can't
Mhm.
just sign up for a course and then all of a sudden you have all this AI education. You actually have to do it. And in life in general, I mean, how many people sign up and apply to college and pay tuition and drop?
Yeah, you're right. Or just never show up to class and just hope that they do fine on the final. That happens too.
I mean,
So,
Devon, you and I, are the kind who like, oh, an opportunity to learn. Let me make this a priority. Oh, I know I'm that way, and I get the sense that you take your stuff very seriously. You work on your
mhm.
presentations, you rehearse them, you work with your team, blah, blah, blah.
No,
Some
no.
people just don't put that effort into it. And frankly, using AI for business is going to require effort. As ubiquitous as AI is, you almost can't do anything in work anymore without using it to some degree. But using it
Yeah,
to really benefit you, you have to know it. You're way better off if you know what you're doing.
yeah, exactly. And I think knowing what you need it for is probably part of the coursework, I'm sure. Um,
In strategy 2, I mean, in course 2, he's not even introducing course 1. He introduces the OPE strategy, a great framework that I bumbled around with, and I used it with one prospect, actually my best friend Laura. She runs a business. So I used it to kind of like as a model for an interview that I did with her. It's called the OPE AI strategy, and it means outcomes, priorities, and elements.
oh,
And
I
it
like that.
helps you think through what outcomes would I like if I were using AI? What are my priorities? What elements are involved? It helps you to figure out, to really think deep, peel the onion.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so I did the OPE AI strategy in course 2, but like I said, I bumbled around. And at the bottom of the course 2 message thread, like if you were on the AIMF community site, and there's categories for message boards like questions, and one of them is called courses. And in that message board, those are the questions that Jason asks in each of the courses. And then people who have taken the course answer the question,
Right.
and, or they don't. If they answer the question, I'm notified. So then I know, oh, this person's taking course 2, for example. But
Mhm.
in the course 2 question, I linked like an example of one of the elements of my OPE strategy. And then I linked the questionnaire that I was using for my interview with Laura
Oh,
based
nice.
on the OPE strategy. And then I had an hour and a half interview with her at the end of May. And then I created a 3-minute video of her and I, how does that
Mhm.
go? having,
Right.
having this conversation.
I'm
I'm
not
sh-
sure.
I know that one's a tough one. Um, but then so I followed through, and I didn't get her permission to like put it up on my YouTube channel, but I did get her permission to share it with the community to say, here's an example of me interviewing a prospect based on the OPE framework strategy. And I'm using that as my, so I'm really applying this stuff, and I'm of course tracking all the time that I'm investing in learning about it, because I think people need to understand that, yes, they're hearing a lot about AI, kind of like the communication. I don't need a communication course. I communicate all the time.
Right.
I think that applies to AI. I don't need an AI course. I'm using it to create, I'm using the free chat GPT to create images for my video game that I'm making. Or I'm using chat GPT to write tweets for me. So I don't need AI education. I use AI all the time. What they don't understand is that AI is way bigger than the one application they're using.
Right. And they might not
And
be using it in an optimized fashion either.
I was just going to say the potential of AI is way bigger than what you see at the surface. And that is where I think people, need to just like learn on their own basically, or experience it. But by taking these structured courses, Jason lays out all these opportunities to experience it. Here, try this. Here's what I did. What does that make you think about what you can do? And so the courses are great that way for helping people understand the potential of AI and then learn it, to apply to their own stuff. But talking people into that kind of thing, I mean, they need to have a serious desire to learn.
Right. And what about time commitment? What time commitment did you take on that particular exercise? Well, and I know, well, that was something that you mentioned, but
Well, you know what, I track my time, so my timer's going all the time. And I track it in a category that I call R&D, research and development. And then in R&D, I have a task list for courses. So I have not yet gone and extracted that information, because I didn't start the courses until May 5th. And I, that's, in fact, let me just add that to my notes here, because I think that that's something that I need to be sure. How much time have I devoted so far to AIMF courses? And I think that that would be a fabulous piece of information as I communicate with people to help manage their expectations, basically, right?
yes, it's like when you see an article on whatever news site and they say estimated reading time is this much, then you say, okay, yeah, I have, the 9 minutes to read this now or something.
And that's kind of and that is part of my hypothesis, now that you mention it. Why do we only have 25 members who have started the courses? Because I believe at the beginning of the course, he does have, how long will it take you to go through this module?
Okay.
It's how long will it take you to listen to this module, not how long will it take you to pause it, reflect on this interesting point, take a closer look at the prompts that he's showing in his examples. It's not, I mean, reading an article and then applying that knowledge, that is one of my favorite books. Is this backwards on the screen?
No, the
Okay.
knowing doing gap.
The
I
Knowing
remember.
Doing Gap. And this book was published. This is a book we used to hand out when we would consult. Copyright 2000. So that's a quarter of a century old. But the concept is still very, and I'm sure there are, more recent editions of that book. The concept though, the knowing doing gap, you can know something, but if you don't actually do it, then you don't really know how to do it. The other thing is like when you said the hypothesis, that actually is the foundation of that, that approach is know, well, let's see, I don't know, I've never done it before, so I have to make a hypothesis. It's interesting to see how does that hypothesis morph now that you actually try to turn that idea into action. And that's part of the course that I'm right at the very end of course 3 of, okay, pull a workflow, design a workflow, and then have AI help you make that workflow. And within that workflow, figure out how much time does it take you to do it manually, and then how can you enhance those tasks in the workflow using AI. And if you don't know, here are some example prompts to help you think it through. It takes time, Devon, and I think that it would be great. That would probably be a fabulous piece of content for me to write, to say, here, in the life of the AI learner, this is how much time it takes to listen to the course, how much time it took me to write my notes, and to, for example, I'm just going to quickly share my screen for the purpose of this recording. Hey, what is this? Hide this floating meeting controls. Okay, so I put together all these spreadsheets so that I could keep track. And all of this started, Devon, when you mentioned the time gaps in between.
Right.
Like you might forget what you learned.
Uh-huh.
And my time gaps in between are humongous, because if we go and take a look at this version history, you'll see, this is going to be kind of interesting. I started this document on May 8th, and I go back in, and then there's a big time gap between May 15th and June 3rd, because he didn't have a course, he didn't have the next module ready, so I couldn't work on it. But when I went back in on June 3rd, I had to do a lot of work on, well, you see, I have a whole bunch of entries on June 3rd. A lot of that was going back and reviewing what I had done back on May 15th.
Right. Okay.
And so this kind of shows my pace. So this, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's going to be some interesting information. But not everybody is going to do this. Not everybody is going to put together these worksheets. I recorded the quiz. How did I answer the quiz questions? These are linked to comments that, maybe I had it wrong the first time or something like that. I did that for each course. And now this course 3 is really rich, and I'm not done with it yet. And these are the notes I'm taking while I'm just reading through it and then digging in. So this takes a lot of time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
This is
and
neat.
then this is kind of short. I'm finding like typos and stuff in his,
Oh,
I'm just keeping track for him.
that's nice.
He
Yeah,
he
that might.
appreciates, yeah, he appreciates it.
That's good.
Yeah. So anyways, the
Nice.
coursework is, that might be part of the answer part of the hypothesis, or be an element of it, is that the course says this is going to take you 45 minutes to go through, and then you realize, oh, you know what, it's going to actually take you 2.5 weeks.
Right.
And it's going to mean you not just sitting there kind of passively having it run in the background while you're listening to a lecture. It's going to mean now apply it figure out where your challenges are, where your barriers are, where your discoveries are. It will reap rewards if you go through that, but a lot of people do not have that drive.
Right. Yeah, I think you're
Or
right.
the time, the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. So,
So it's a challenge. But then the other thing, and again, I'm glad we're recording this, one of the things we're looking at is that some training and consulting sites are education and training or training and consulting or whatever they call themselves
mhm.
are offering CE credits, or I just did an all-day course for PDU, which is professional development units.
Oh, okay.
Now, these are oftentimes official requirements for certain types of positions. Like
Mm,
if you tell people you're a project manager, they're going to want you to have a project management certificate.
right,
And that certificate is needs to be kept current by annually acquiring a certain number of CE credits or whatever crediting framework they use. But there's a way to have your courses certified as actually providing the right kind of training to give these professionals those credentials that they add to their resume. Now, with AI, there are no requirements yet. But the EU has written them into their plan that they're rolling out to their official oversight board that says if people claim that they are marketing AI specialists, they must be able to prove that they've taken certified courses. Well, there aren't any
oh, neat.
certified courses yet because we're too new. So the long game for me with AI marketing forum is to make sure that once the US requires the CE credits in order for official, documentation, that our courses, we can submit them to the oversight committee and our courses will qualify because they're taught by the right level of instructors. They have the required quizzes that actually prove that you've taken the course.
Right.
I want, rather than quizzes, I want more, and this again might be help our courses or hurt them. But I think that people should need to be able to show their work,
Yeah.
that they didn't just run the course in the background. AI calculated, hey, they ran this course on their, IP. They have to prove that they learned something from it, or even if they didn't learn it because they already knew it, that they can apply these concepts.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It reminds me of turning in your math homework without any work, and it's like, did you just use a calculator?
Well, interestingly enough, Jeff Coe is introducing a curriculum in their, I believe it's their high school programs for how to use AI.
Nice.
And a big portion of that is use AI to answer this question or to do this project. And then part of the curriculum says, and now show us your work. And a lot of that work is the iterations so I could go into ChatGPT. I say, give me an engagement strategy for a small community, online community. And it gives me an engagement strategy. And I look at that engagement strategy and I like certain things. And in fact, that's one of the projects that I've done. And I asked 3 different large language models, Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT. And then to show my work, I am showing how I've asked Claude to review the strategy that ChatGPT gave me and tell me what they think is missing, or where I can get the most out of it. So I've got prompts that I've written to get the large language models to vet each other's work and then show my final product that I took as a result of getting input from 3 AIs on one concept. So that's the kind of work that every AI expert should know how to do.
Yeah, that's really neat. I never thought of giving it to different AIs for a second opinion. Um,
And that's the kind
so
of stuff in our community. We have this one woman, her name is Liza Adams, and she is speaking all over the place. She's here in Denver, thank God, because I get to meet with her every month. But her approach is very much, don't think of AI as a one-click answer to whatever it is you're trying to search out, unless you're looking for a guacamole recipe.
mhm.
But if you're using it for practical, you're using it in your job, know how to use it, because AIs will hallucinate. So
Mhm.
the iterations and the comparisons will help to make sure that you are using facts, and also using AI for what it's really good at, and that is making you think.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I like that.
it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, that's neat.
It is pretty fascinating stuff. So again, thank you for filling out that thing. I'm going to, no, I'm going to leave this recording continuing for a moment, because I want to ask you, you didn't get the usual welcome to the community from Jason because I sent you the wrong link.
Okay, that's okay.
Now I know.
Yes, there we go. Now you know.
But you still managed to find that start here or get started or what, because you answered that first question
Hmm.
about introduce yourself. How did you find that?
So when I logged into the community, that was the first thing that I saw, being
Okay.
that it's pinned at the top of the message board or whatever it's called.
I'm
So,
calling it a message board, and that's a good question.
yeah.
I don't know if that's what it's called.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I've been referring to it as the message board. So
Yeah.
you went to this, and I'm just going to jump there. And once you're in the community, you can get rid of that pinned message, once that you've done it, by just clicking the little button up in the side that says hide. But that's good. So, and yes, welcome aboard, start here. And then I am, right now, I've got 7 members who have voted in the poll. Do you recall if you did the poll?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
Was the poll embedded into the text of the, oh, okay. I skipped over that part.
Yeah, I don't know if it was, let me see if it's embedded in the text. Oh, it is. It's in the text, and then there's also a link on the part that you see when you first go in and see that message. It says poll, 70 members have responded.
I
So
see.
there's, a couple of ways to like be alerted that it's there, but that's another piece of information. And the poll is 4 questions that just says, are you a newbie? Are you in the learning mode? Are you iterating, or are you scaling? And it just asks you to pick one. But we're looking at that information just to see who sees this and what kind of information are we getting. When I get that information, if somebody says they're a newbie, for example, it says, I'm pretty much an AI newbie, but gosh darn it, people like me. That's the
Yes, I
answer.
do remember that. That stood out to me.
Okay, and then when I see who takes that, and then I will go and look at their LinkedIn if I can find it. A lot of times people add it to their profile. Sometimes I just have to search. And then
Mhm.
if they're like, one of the women who did it was a cosmetologist, a hairdresser. I was like,
Oh,
okay, so she's not a marketer, but she's interested in AI. So I'm developing some ideas for how we can serve different verticals, people
mhm.
who don't necessarily label themselves as marketers. So that's kind of one of my little, tangents, because I have all this data. So I'm trying to figure out how can I make this data work for me.
Yeah, that's neat. Do you keep a structured log of the industry that members belong to?
Well, it was just 2 or 3 weeks ago that I realized I needed that. So I added that in as a field in HubSpot so that now I can fill that in as I come across it. Again, it's very manual. I can't pull it automatically. I actually have to kind of get to know these people through their digital presence. And
Yeah.
so what I did to prioritize that, to help me figure out, okay, I could go through all 260 members and open up their LinkedIn if they gave it to me. And if they didn't, I can go search it. And then I'm going to add the LinkedIn to HubSpot. It gets crazy time consuming. So I
Mhm.
decided that if it's a person who actually seems to be engaging, who I have any hope in hell of becoming engaged with because they want to be engaged, then I
Mhm.
will go and look at their industry. Now, for anybody who answers the poll, I decided that's a good manageable portion of the population, 70 people. So I went in on each of the 70 and where I could, I found what industry they were in and I populated that field manually in HubSpot.
I see.
But now I can pull reports from HubSpot. Give me a list of all of the AIMF community members, include the industry field on it, and then I can sort by industry and see, hey, we've got 5 people in real estate.
Mhm.
We've got 1 person in cosmetology. We've got 4 people in healthcare coaching or consulting.
Yeah.
And then start to kind of focus on, hey, in your industry, what are you finding to be working so far? Or as I was doing course number 3, I thought of you because you mentioned this in your intro. I mean, it is very much a personal thing right now for me, but it's
Mhm.
something that I want to model for for Jason, who is working really hard at trying to get this thing up and running. And then he's got a board of advisors meeting on the 29th of August. And his board of advisors are 3 heavy hitters. And I want to present to them. I won't be at the meeting, but Jason said that I can contribute to the agenda.
Mm.
I want to add on the agenda. Here's how I am analyzing our community. These are opportunities that I think we have. And here's a model of how I would do that. And I want to present to them and then get their support and possibly actually get their involvement on it. Or if nothing else, they're going to be like, she is strategizing. You know what? I've got a couple of ad hoc jobs I'd like to bring her in on. I wonder if she's for hire because I would like to start making some money.
Yeah. No, that sounds good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so there's, with all this data that I'm pulling, but the welcome aboard start here, that introduction is I'm tracking it as a deal in HubSpot because I can configure HubSpot's fields, for what I'm tracking. I'm tracking their poll, how they are they a newbie or are they in an integrator scale or whatever. And then I'm tracking, like I said, once they start engaging, I'm tracking their industry as well.
Nice.
Yeah, and manually tracking when I can. I've got a couple of things that will flag when somebody's working on a course. But if somebody's commenting a lot, for example, because I read all of the message boards every single day.
Mhm.
Um, and if they're commenting a lot or getting involved, then I go look at their LinkedIn and then I can add their industry. I can look at their course. So those are things that make me stop and pull that information manually because I have no way
Mhm.
of doing it automatically.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Knowing that it's worth it to understand a little bit more about
Yeah,
people who are engaging. So
yeah. And
it's
I
good.
think, I think, Devin, I'm hoping that what I can do with all of this is really like when we were at Fixate, and this is before you came on, but Chris dumped on me the Apollo tool, which was basically here's some addresses you can spam. And
Mhm.
then that other thing, that closed database, which
Right.
was so clumsy. And
It was.
it wasted more time than it saved. It never provided us any value. So based on that experience, I want to avoid those, oh, this is an easy fix, because that's what Chris thought. Oh, this will be easy. We'll go to Apollo, we'll stick them into close. He dumped like 5,000 email addresses into close. Then I had to sort that crap out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So based on that experience, I want to now avoid that stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good.
You have let me talk for the entirety of this meeting. I want to at least get an update because I know today's a work day for you. So we only have 5 minutes unless you can stay longer, but
I have 5 minutes. Sorry.
what was that?
I have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. Well, hit me with the high points.
Okay, so we're
And
working on
I'm
our
gonna stop the recording just so that you are